Market Smarter, using Google My Business for lead generation with Ronnie Deaver, episode 322. Are you ready to make your law firm a profit-generating machine that will free up your time and skyrocket your impact? With more than 2 decades of business growth experience and having proven that you can be successful while prioritizing your family and your impact, introducing the Profit with Law podcast. I am your host, the creator of the firm differentiator 10X Effect, Moshe Amsel. Well, hello and welcome to another amazing guest interview here on the Profit with Law podcast. I'm your host, Moshe Amsel, and topic for today is going to be something marketing related. I don't know what it's going to be, but it's going to be something marketing related. And I'm stoked. I'm excited. Why? Because I'll tell you something. When I did initial outreach on LinkedIn to law firm owners to introduce myself, get them to know about the podcast, try to collaborate, connect with people. When I did this cold outreach, 90% of them assumed I was a marketer. Oh, you're just another marketer. Don't bother me. Get it. It's almost like I get telemarketing calls as a business owner for people trying to sell me, credit that costs 150% a year or whatever. And all day long, my phone is ringing with people with these, offers. Oh, I can get you a line of credit, that costs you, for every $100 you borrow, you have to pay $150 back over the course of 90 days. But I can't even believe that there's a business around it. There's so many people who are doing it. But I can totally relate and understand that that's the feedback that I got. So anyway, what I've come to find is that there are a lot of marketers out there, and there are a few good ones. And my job here on the podcast is to try to help you make sense of marketing as a law firm owner. Marketing can be very confusing. And I think the most confusing part about it is that there's so many successful marketing agencies, and each one of them focuses on something specific. And they're different. So you can go to one marketing agency and they'll, oh yeah, $2,500 a month, and we'll get your SEO ranking, and you'll be in the top of Google search. And then you go to another one, and they're like, oh, you want money now? We're gonna pay, we're gonna pay Google Ads, and we're gonna advertise for you, and we're gonna get you, to show up as an ad at the top of Google search. And you go to another one, and they're like, oh, you need to interrupt people in their lives and the way that TV ads do. So we're going to do a Facebook ad strategy. And if you call 10 different marketing agencies, you're going to get 10 different opinions about what is the next thing that you should do in your marketing. And I wish that there was a marketing agency, maybe not that does it all, but that just sold you CMO services, chief marketing officer services. They literally meet with you, understand your niche, your target market, and who you serve, how you operate, and analyze your business and where you're at, what level of business you're at, and how much consistency do you have with your leads right now. And then they say, okay, based on what you shared and your current financial position and your current capacity, this is what we think should be your marketing strategy. First, you do this. Once we conquer this, that's going to solve this business problem. Then we're going to go and do this. And then they step you through this stepped-in process of how you're going to focus on one thing first, then the next, then the next. And I wish that existed. I haven't found it yet for you guys, but when I do, I'll let you know. In the meantime, we're bringing various marketers here on the podcast, and we're having conversations, and each one of them is sharing their expertise, their knowledge. So at least you can start to know what questions to ask. You can start to know what to think about, and you start to get food for thought about, maybe this is the thing I need to do first. And let's see if our guest today will help us navigate that and figure out where you should focus your efforts first in your marketing strategy. So before I introduce our guest and do a quick plug for our free coaching session that we offer, if you've been listening to the podcast, you already know about it. But if this is your first time here, just know that I am a coach for law firm owners, a strategist. My background's accounting. I'm a profit first professional. I help law firm owners not only grow their top line, but grow their bottom line so that they can live the life of their dreams. And if you are interested in our elite coaching program, it's a year-long program that will literally change your firm. And I'll make this claim. We will at least 10x your revenue and 2x your revenue and 10x your profit, right? We will double your revenue and 10x your profit if you follow all the things that I teach and that we guide you through in the coaching program. If you're interested in that, then you want to book a free coaching call with one of our coaches. And you do that at profitwithlaw.com/free coaching, profitwithlaw.com/free coaching. And since this is an audio podcast, I know you're probably driving on the highway at 80 miles an hour or taking a shower or out for a run. That's okay. We've got you covered. The resources we mentioned today are going to be in our show notes. It's in the description of the episode. It's also on our website, profitwithlaw.com. So you can literally go to profitwithlaw.com, look at the episode, and there's a resources section where every single link that we talk about is listed, and you can grab the link from there. So our guest today is Ronnie Deaver. Ronnie is the founder of NoBull Marketing. Not NoBull like NOBLE, but NoBull like NoBull, NOBULL. NoBull Marketing, a lawyer exclusive marketing agency that specializes in generating leads and increasing PNC to paying close rates with Google My Business and sales training. In that capacity, he created the first 100% guarantee in the industry, offering to pay back everything, even the advertising budget a client has spent, if he can't make it profitable. That's quite bold. That offer quadrupled the client base of NoBull Marketing in 3 months, and it's still going strong. You know, this actually reminds me, we had another guest on the show a while back, and we'll link that episode for you because I'm drawing a blank on his name right now. It'll come back to me later. But he does Google pay-per-click ads for you, and he charges you based on the lead generation. So in other words, you're only paying for results. You're not actually, so they decide what they think they can produce for you, what the ad spend should be. They'll do the ad spend on their dime, and then they charge you for the results. Very interesting model. Sounds like Ronnie is putting his money where his mouth is in that regard for his clients. And I don't know if he's still doing it. We'll ask him shortly. But this is really exciting to have him here, because to be able to take a stance like that and be that bold with a guarantee, you got to really believe that you can make it happen. And I'd like to know why he's so sure. So Ronnie, welcome to the show.
I'm so glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
So that was like the world's longest intro, but we'll jump in here, and it's just real quick. Our listeners, they want to know who you are, right? That's the first thing. So who is this guy? So give us the broad strokes. Who's Ronnie? Where'd you come from? What's your life story, your background, something so we know who you are and who we're listening to for the next 45 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. So, hey, everybody, my name is Ronnie, founder of NoBull Marketing. I started this, my own company here about a year ago, but my experience with lawyers goes back to about 4 years ago. I've worked with about 200 to 250 plus different lawyer campaigns over the years. And if you just want an interesting life story, the way I got started in digital marketing was when I first moved to Boston as like a 19-year-old kid. I was broke in the city, and I went on Craigslist and found a gig to build somebody a website. We met in a McDonald's, and the first thing the guy says is, "I want to show up #1 on Google." Of course, I didn't know what that meant, but I was broke and needed some money. So I accepted the gig, and turns out I figured it out. And that's how I ended up getting introduced to Google My Business. I actually succeeded for that guy in Google My Business. And then the rest was history. And so over the time, basically what happens, I ran all these campaigns, and, I'm no CMO for these, different companies. That's a cool idea you mentioned. But what I have found is I'm working these 250 campaigns. And to be clear, that includes people that had websites as small as maybe 300 visitors a month, right? So that's a one-person attorney, okay? To firms that are maybe 5, 6+ attorneys, and they've got websites they've spent millions on over the years. And, they have 20,000+ visitors a month. So I've worked on the gambit here. And no matter what, the data showed me that 60 to 80% of all of their call volume came directly from or indirectly from Google My Business, now named Google Business Profile. And so over the years, I kept finding that, wow, there's this incredible asset that people don't put a lot of emphasis on. And I was eventually like, okay, well, I got to go do my own thing. I got to be the one guy that says, no, guys, this is the asset. I just have the data. I'm not trying to come up. You talk about all these other agencies coming up with all these different things that can work. And you're right. Like Facebook can work, LinkedIn can work. And I'm like, that's great and all, but where is the data saying that the majority is, right? Like all these other things are nice to have, but where is the majority? And every campaign I ran, didn't matter if they were running billboards and TV or Facebook ads, the majority, all roads led to Google My Business, which is what I'm here to talk about.
Awesome. So I love that little story that you gave us, but Google My Business. Mm-hmm. I mean, my understanding of it is basically Google's business card of my business, right? It's just like, oh, my phone number, my website, my, when somebody searches for me, it shows up with the little thing, my business name and how many stars I have and how many reviews I have. And, and somebody can click on it. Like that's showing up and maybe in the map pack, maybe it's, separately. How is that like the most important thing? Like what is there something more to Google My Business that I don't know about?
Quite a bit, actually. So that's about 10 years ago that Google My Business was purely just a kind of business card function. It's actually grown quite a bit now. It is very much not a set and forget directory. Okay. There is a lot you can do on the platform now to rank higher, to show up on that map pack, to increase your call volume, to increase your profile views, to increase your rankings, is what people usually talk about. And what it really comes down to is at the end of the day, Google likes Google. Okay. And so what does that mean? Well, okay, if you want to rank highly on Google, prove to Google that you like Google. So on Google My Business, the kind of things that you can do that a lot of other people in your competition aren't doing is adding photos all the time, adding posts all the time. You actually have a new function now called questions and answers, where you can actually ask yourself a question and answer a question, right? So we're adding right now about 12,000 words per year to our clients' accounts on Google Business Profile, just by asking them questions, then answering those questions on their behalf. You can obviously get more reviews. You can respond to those reviews. You can even put keywords in your responses to those reviews. You can add products and you can add services. So for example, if you're a criminal lawyer, right, you don't just do criminal law or drug crime law. You also do marijuana crime law, methamphetamine crime. You can break everything out. Family law is not family law. It's divorce and child custody and child support and, everything. And you can divide all that out and put a lot of what I just call grunt work into the profile, okay? And do that consistently. And Google's going to reward you. And that profile is going to rank higher and higher. And the reason that matters, for one, the first thing most people do, especially when they're ready to hire a lawyer, right? When they have the intention to hire a lawyer, and they don't already have one, the first thing they do is they Google lawyer near me, insert the type, okay? And nowadays, this didn't used to be true. Nowadays, still the first thing you see is a Google ad. That's always true. But now, before you see the traditional organic SEO result, which is what everyone talked about, say 5 years ago when people are saying, rank number one, get more website traffic. That's traditional SEO. Before you see that, you see the map pack now, i.e. Google My Business. Google My Business now shows up way, way before you ever see traditional website SEO, traditional SEO. Okay. And what I've actually found over the years is not only does 60 to 80% of that call volume come from Google My Business, but 75% of those calls come from people who click to call from that profile without ever having looked at your website. They don't call from your website. They call from that profile, right? It's just like if you Google for a restaurant near you, right? Type in Italian restaurant near me. Do you go look at their website? No, nowadays you can see the menu on there. You can order directly from there. You can schedule a reservation straight from Google Business Profile on there. You never go to a restaurant's website. The same is becoming true in lawyers. And a lot of lawyers haven't updated in that mentality, and they keep their Google Business Profile as a set and forget, and they don't realize the massive amount of opportunity that they're missing.
Now, there's another thing that's showing up. So there's ads that show up, but then there's LSAs that show up before the map pack, right?
Yep.
What's the value of LSAs over Google My Business? And LSAs is just tell us what that stands for. I'm sure that our listeners may not. And where does that fit in the gamut of things?
Yeah. So local service ads is what LSA stands for. If you guys have seen that, usually it looks like an image of a lawyer and they have their reviews and you have some basic information. You can click on it and people can either fill out a form or call. LSAs, in my opinion, were the second iteration of Google trying to make their platform easy enough for laymen to spend a lot of money and actually make money on it, right? Without having to need an expert to work on it. Their first version was like, I'm blanking on the name, but it was like Google Easy Ads, Google Quick Ads, something like that. Google Express. There we go. Google Express is what the first version was. That was a total failure. People would just burn money on that and get no profit. Second version was local service ads, which have done marginally better. You can actually run a local service ad and get relevant clients. It's still not very good at preventing types of cases you don't do. So you can't, if you do family law, it's really hard to get it, but you only do divorce. It's really hard to teach it to not send you adoption cases or any other thing like that. Like it's still got a lot of limited control. And now they're moving on to another thing, which we don't need to talk about here. But as it relates in terms of, there's kind of two thoughts here. As it relates to just pure volume and opportunity, it's not even close. It's not even comparable to Google My Business. The just sheer volume of opportunity on Google My Business is incredibly different. Okay. And the main reason is most people still skip ads, right? There's still a habit of, hey, I just see an ad, I skip over it, I go to the next first result. Okay. No, that's not everyone. There is a certain percentage of people that are very willing to click ads. So there's absolutely money to be made in ads. I'm not saying that there isn't, but I am saying that the volume of opportunity still sits with Google My Business over even Google ads and even over local service ads. And then further, here's how they connect even more. No matter what you do, whether you're running Google ads or Facebook or billboards, inevitably what people are going to do is they click your ad, they look at your landing page or whatever you have, your website. Inevitably, they go back to Google, they Google your name, and they look at your reviews on Google My Business. And that's why I say directly and indirectly, because no matter how you do it, it doesn't matter if you're running a billboard ad, they're not going to remember your ad. They're going to remember your name. And then they Google your name. And then they see your Google business profile. It's a big thing on the right, or it's a big thing on the top on mobile. It's the first thing they see is the Google business profile. And then they interact from there. And then further, as it relates to LSAs, the review count on LSAs is actually sourced from the review count on your Google business profile. So your LSAs do better, the better your Google business profile looks.
Very compelling argument to still focus on Google My Business first. So the first thing that jumps out at me is I don't know what all the different things are in Google My Business. You highlighted that you can even do a question answer stuff, which is, I clearly didn't know that. But you also keep talking about how somebody's going and checking out my reviews. So is it really Google My Business that's the focus, or is it the quality and quantity of the reviews that we have?
Yeah, so it's a little bit of both. And it depends on how you're thinking about it, because for the indirect people, the people who maybe been like, for example, I've had people who are referred to a lawyer, and if they had bad reviews, even with that referral, they won't call that lawyer, right? And they'll tell them later, hey, I decided not to work with you because they had too many bad reviews, right? So the indirect kind of lead generation, when we talk about that, reviews are the main factor, okay? Just because that's what people are interacting for on it. They're double checking, or they're coming back from, if say they saw your landing page, they came back, they're mostly looking into, hey, what are these guys' reviews? Okay. But the majority of call volume isn't that. The majority of call volume is actually going to come from people saying, hey, family lawyer near me, or criminal lawyer near me, or whatever, and then showing up on that map pack. Okay. And so then there's quite a lot that goes into what do you need to do to show up in those top 3 results. Okay. And of course, you never own the top 3 100% of the time, but how do you increase your market share on those top 3 results in your market? Okay. So reviews for that account for about, and of course, this is not a science, it's a little bit of an art, but it's about 35% of the overall ranking factor. Okay. And so that's 2 parts. That's review count, i.e., how many reviews you have, but it's also review velocity. All right. And review velocity means how frequently are you getting reviews. So for example, Google would rather see you get maybe 20 reviews over a period of 4 weeks rather than 20 reviews in one day and then nothing again for like a month. Okay. Because what Google wants to see is they want to see that consistency. They want to see that people like you over time. Each time they send you a lead, people like you. They think well of you, not just you spam 20 reviews all at once. I mean, if you do that, you'll have an initial boost and then you'll just slowly fade, for every week after that, because you're like, well, you're not consistent. Okay. So reviews are about 35% of it. All that other stuff I talked about, which there's a lot more than what I just said, that's about 65%. Okay. Is all that other grunt work. All right. So the grunt work is absolutely still the majority, but reviews are a really big lever. And it's a particularly big lever just because so many lawyers are bad at it, right? They're so resistant. They're so unwilling. They're so afraid of a negative review that they don't even try getting good reviews. And so they end up getting maybe a review a year or 5 reviews a year most. When then you have some of the big guys, some of the guys who are willing to put their neck on the line and try, who are getting 100 reviews a year, 200 reviews a year, and they're just dominating you, right? And so that's like one of the biggest things I talk to lawyers about is like, no, guys, you got to be more aggressive with reviews because it's just this massive lever. It's one lever you can pull that's 35% of the ranking, and reviews alone can double your call volume if you're willing to put the effort in.
Yeah. So I absolutely agree. I think that reviews should be a core focus of anybody's marketing strategy. The question is this something that can be handed off to a marketing agency to do for them, or is this something that the law firm really needs to have a process in place to go and get these reviews on their own? And if it's the latter, do you have any pointers on what they can do to create that process and execute on it?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a little bit of yes to both. So for me, like with my clients, what we do is we build automations that make this a lot easier. And so we both have fully automatic systems as well as semi-automatic systems. So I'll start with the semi-automatic. Semi-automatic means, for example, I'll create a very easy Google sheet where all they have to do, or somebody on their team has to do, is after they have a person that they think is a valid person to ask for a review, all they have to do and implement in their system, they do have to do something on their end, right, is enter a name, a phone number, and type in the word yes. And then the system will automatically follow up 3 to 7 times, depending on how aggressive you want to be, texting them saying, hey, will you leave us a review? Okay. And so that, in terms of like making it easier and making it so where there doesn't need to be a drastic process like that has like a 40% conversion rate. So if you put 10 people on there, I expect at least 4 of those people will actually leave a review, which is actually a very, very high conversion rate for asking people for reviews. Okay. Right. But from the lawyer's perspective, all they had to do compared to what they had to do previously was they just add a name and a phone number and type the word yes. That's a lot easier than having to remember or to build a little internal system to notify you to follow up 3 times and do that manually. Okay. So that's a good example of how I can work together with both an internal process as well as having an agency put a system in place. Okay. Now you can also make it fully automated. So for example, and before I go into this, I actually need to cover a big myth. There's a big myth with people that you can only get reviews from paying clients or people that you've recently succeeded in a case. That's not actually true. You can actually get a review from anyone you've given legitimate legal value to. Okay. And so what that means though, is that's a lot wider audience than you might think. So for example, if you just did a 30-minute free consultation with somebody or a free coaching session like you do, for example, and you gave that person legitimate value, right? And they feel like they got value, you can ask at the end of the call, hey, do you feel like you got value out of this? And they say yes. Then you can say, great, would you mind leaving me a review on Google? So every free consultation you do is a great opportunity. One of my favorite examples of this is estate planning lawyers. They'll go host a seminar every quarter to a nursing home in front of 60 people, spend 2 hours on it, get a couple clients out of it. But then I tell them at the end, hey, just ask everyone in that room who just spent 2 hours with you to leave a review on you about you on Google, and they'll go get 15, 20 extra reviews right there, right? From an event they were already going to do. Okay. So there's a lot of different opportunities to get reviews that are not just the moment a case closes or right before you succeed, or if they're happy or not. Like there's other opportunities than that. Okay. But with the fully automatic, well, then you can, depending how good your internal systems are, you can trigger that off of, for example, if you use a tool like Calendly or any kind of scheduling link, right, to schedule a consultation, you can have a trigger set that 5 minutes after that consultation, you automatically ask for that review. Or right when if you have a case flow like Practice Panther, right when a case closes, you can trigger, a request for review. So there's different ways that you can fully automate it and different ways you can semi-automate it. But I do agree, regardless, that it does need to be built into the operations of the law firm to some capacity, whether fully automated or semi-automated. I recommend for lawyers that this is not, what most people do is they boom and bust, right? They think about it once every 6 months. They reach out to everybody all at once, get a bunch of reviews, and then never think about it. Which, of course, as I said earlier, Google doesn't love, because that means your velocity is really bad, right? Because every other week you have nothing, right? And so it's way better over the long term that you have consistency by building it into your operations so that you can get yourself in the habit of, if you just get 2, 3, maybe even 5 reviews a month, but even just 2 to 3, you would dominate almost everyone in your market except for the heaviest of hitters.
Good. I love that. But let's just talk about this automation real quick.
Yeah.
So I presume that there's people who are saying, yeah, this sounds great, but how do I know that they're going to leave me a good review? Right. Yep. Is there something that we can build into the automation to kind of vet them before they get to the step of asking them for that review?
So technically, yes, it's called review gating. It's actually incredibly against the terms of services. And if you get caught, will actually lead to any review you've gotten since you've had that system set up being removed. I've literally watched somebody lose about 400 reviews in one day. And it happens from they were doing review gating and Google cracked down on that. And so really what I talk to people about this on is that instead of trying to play defense against this, it's way better to play offense. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One, here's kind of a harsh reality. Most people just don't care that much about you to leave a review. They just don't. Most people don't. Like, how many times have you gone to a restaurant and it wasn't that good food and you didn't bother leaving a bad review? You just didn't care. You just got other things to do. You got bigger fish to fry. This is not the thing you care the most about. Right. So unless you did something distinctly unethical or stole somebody's money or a terrible person, most people aren't going to bother to leave your review. They just don't care that much. All right. That's the biggest thing I tell people. You're so worried about this bad review. And I'm just like, I just don't think they care that much about you. They just don't. They just got other things to do. The second thing is, even if you do sometimes get those crazies, the people that exist that just leave a review and just want to crap on people, that those people exist. even if that is only 1 out of maybe 10 people, okay? If you were able to get 9 good reviews with 1 bad review, your overall score is still like a 4.6, all right? Or I think 4.5, which is fine. It has no measurable impact on whether or not you're succeeding in terms of actual call volume. Until you get below like a 4.0, there's very little impact on your actual call volume. There's statistics on this I don't have on hand, but basically anything above a 4.0 and you're solid. But if you're maintaining a 4.5 and you're getting those 9 reviews and that 1 bad review, okay, you're going to be dominating because Google loves that you're getting so many reviews and you're having that consistency. You're getting way more call volume and your star rating is still high enough. And then third, finally, most people actually want to see that you have a bad review every now and then. Bad reviews can be very profitable, all right, especially if you handle it well. Because people, if they see 30 positive reviews or even more like 100 positive reviews and not a single negative, they start thinking you're lying. It looks fake. It doesn't look real. Are those bots? Are these real? They really start to not trust you. They see 1 or 2 bad reviews and they see you respond well to it. They believe you. And they're like, yes, some crazy people do exist, but these guys handled it well and they were nice about it. And so it actually turns into an opportunity that you're more likely to convert somebody. So basically it all comes down to all this fear that comes into these bad reviews. First of all, it's almost certainly not going to happen. Secondly, even at the percentage rate that it does happen, it's not a threat. You're going to get more good reviews than bad reviews, most likely, unless you're just really bad at what you do, in which case I can't help you. And finally, in being so fearful about getting reviews, you're massively limiting your own growth, right? You're like trying to play the defense here is going to make you way less money and way less profitable than trying to play the offense and being able to handle that 1 negative review.
Okay, so I don't want to spend the entire episode on reviews, but I have one.
Let's go, man.
One more question about reviews, and this is something that I see coming up in these Facebook groups lawyers are in, where somebody will leave a review, and it's like the opposing party or the like something like that, where clearly you didn't provide legal services to them. That review shouldn't be allowed, and then people get stuck on that, right? And they're like, oh, what do I do? Is there like a legal department at Google I can go to? And like, all that effort to like get this review removed. What do you advise your clients to do when that happens? And how would you advise our listeners to deal with it? Because, you can lose a lot of sleep over, over a negative review.
I kind of have 2 tracks for it. And either way, it's based on, what can you handle with the least amount of emotional volatility? Because as you said, losing sleep means you're less, it means you're less productive in every other part of your business. We got bigger fish to fry than this 1 negative review. The 1 track is the simplest, which is, hey, report it. Just quickly report it on Google My Business, give them the story. Okay. Second, respond to it very well, right? You can even turn this into a marketing opportunity. You can make it very clear that, hey, this was somebody of the opposing counsel. They unfortunately lost their case to my client. I'm sorry. They felt like, for somebody reading that, they're like, oh, they won their case. That's great. I'm so glad that they won. So good that, like, especially if you respond well, it can even turn into a marketing, a positive sales pitch. We're like, oh, this guy knows how to win, right? So much so that the opposing person came here to complain, right? Like, as long as you responded ethically and positively, right? Like you weren't just trashing the guy, like people are going to see that as a positive, right? So that's kind of track 1, the simplest level of just like, hey, report it, respond well, use it as a marketing opportunity and move on with your life. The 1 negative review is not going to have that big of an impact overall. Anything above a 4.0, you're still going to get plenty of calls. You're not going to have people where they say, oh, I was going to go to you, but then I didn't over a 4.0. You're fine. They're going to call you. Your majority is still there. You're not going to see a big hit and you can just move on emotionally. If you can't do that, and I get it, because like it's a pride thing, it's an emotional thing. You're like, hey, this isn't fair. There's a whole thing in it. I get it. If you can't do that, the next step that I've seen, the only thing I've seen work is give up on asking Google for help. They're not going to help you other than that 1 little report thing, and it's a shot in the dirt, in the wind, right? The only thing else you can do at that point that I've seen work is you can attempt to cease and desist. You can attempt sending something to that person if you know them and say, hey, this is, and basically you can threaten, right? But yeah, if they don't respond to that threat, I wouldn't go any further than that personally. I say, hey, look, send your cease and desist. Hopefully that's enough. If that's not enough, I would just walk away. It's not worth the actual legal battle or trying to mess with it and just move on and go back to the offense. And again, I go back to my thing of anything that stops you from being on offense with the reviews, move on. Just go back to offense. Like you've got bigger fish to fry. If you're that worried about it, if you channel your pride into getting 5 good reviews to bury that 1 bad review, right? Just be like, get your revenge that way. Like, now it's buried.
It's funny. I've been watching Cobra Kai, which is the Netflix series that's off of the Karate Kid movies. And it's the 2 dojos against each other. And Cobra Kai is like all offense, offense, offense. And Miyagi-Do is all about defense, defense, defense. So it's just like, you got to choose which camp you're in. And, if offense is the strategy, then just keep on offense, and, just keep striking, you keep getting those positive reviews.
I will say, for the defense camp, the guys I've seen in the defense camp on law firms are almost universally making less money than the guys on offense, right? So I can't speak to what happens in the karate, the Karate Kid series, but I can say in the real life data of what I'm looking at right now, the defense strategy is not a valid strategy if you're trying to make money. It really isn't.
Yeah. Okay. So Google My Business, clearly more complicated than just reviews. Reviews is a big piece of it. We covered that. What I'm really curious to know is, like, okay, so clearly you have a business around this, right? Your entire marketing strategy is win at Google My Business. So what is
then
the
build
service?
on top of that?
What's that?
I said, and then build on top of that, because
Right.
we do also do things like Google Ads, and we help some people with webinars, but we say start with Google My Business because all roads lead there. And then, because, like, for example, run that Google ad, inevitably somebody looks at your landing page, go back to Google My Business, look at your name, whatever. So they're always connected, right? But I start with Google My Business.
And I'm a big believer in attorneys should stick to what they do best, and they should hire somebody to do the rest. So it's, from that book, Who Not How, right? You got to figure out who's going to do this, not how do I do this. And it's very easy to listen to this podcast and say, okay, I know I need to focus on my Google My Business. And now you start diving into YouTube videos and
trying
to figure out how to win at Google My Business. So my question for you, Ronnie, is what do you do for your clients? Like, what is the actual, okay, I hire you today. We're using you as our marketing firm. What is the steps that you take to go through and clean up my Google My Business and get it up to snuff? And then how much maintenance does that require over time? Like, how often are we maintaining it, and what is needed, if anything, for the attorney to do?
Yeah. So I actually make a really big effort to make sure that almost no work ever has to be done by the attorney. For me, I feel like as a marketing agency, I fail the more input. I am failing if I require input from the lawyer. All right. Kind of like Elon Musk saying the car, if you have to give a command to the car has failed. I'm very much like that with a marketing agency. I'm like, hey, I want to reduce the number of commands, because I believe in what you just said, the who, not how, of like, you're a lawyer. You've got other things to be doing. You don't need to be doing what I'm doing. Right. So anyways, I'll kind of walk you through, like, what does this actually look like? So you kind of got, in terms of like what happens when you work with us, you got 4 core phases, right? With the initial kind of setup. First phase is your technical on-page SEO. So for anybody who doesn't know what that is, that just means improving the SEO on your website. Okay. And without going too deep into the details, that's things like meta titles, meta descriptions. There's a thing called local schema, which is a very blunt way of telling Google exactly who you are, what you do, where you're located, your hours, etc. Image alt text, speeding up the website, making sure it's faster than 3 seconds, right? All your kind of just basics, like, hey, make sure Google can fully understand your website. And, I talked about this earlier. I was saying, hey, like, traditional SEO is kind of dead. It's not where the money is. Google My Business is the thing. But Google My Business was built on top of the success of traditional SEO. Okay. So Google My Business still scans your website to understand what you're an expert in, what you're an authority in, and what people should trust you in, so that it still uses your website to help you rank. So for example, if you do family law and you don't have a divorce page, you're much less likely to rank on Google My Business, because Google My Business is not certain that you're an expert in divorce. I mean, you say you do divorce, but you don't have 1,000 words proving that you understand divorce. Okay. So that's the kind of thing that goes into like technical SEO, right? So we put a lot of effort into making sure that your basics on your website are solid. All right. Second phase then, in terms of getting set up, is really diving in and just putting in all the grunt work we can into that profile. Okay. And I can't screen share right now. It'd be a lot easier if I could show. But if you were to look at a Google Business profile that's really filled out and you log into it, what that's going to look like is, of course, making sure you have every category you can be. Now, a lot of lawyers, they make a mistake. They call themselves just a general lawyer or a law firm, when in reality, they do have a practice area that they would rather get more clients in. So for example, there are categories for social security disability lawyer, or criminal defense justice lawyer, or personal injury lawyer, or family lawyer, or even divorce lawyer. Divorce lawyer is better than family lawyer if you focus in divorce. Okay. And so you pick those categories and you put all of them that you can, of course, but really pick your primary one. You fill out your information, all the basics that people are used to, right? Like, make sure you have a proper description, all that. But then the things that you can do to go further than that, this is where the grunt work really comes into, is that Google recently, in the last couple of years, they launched services and they launch products. All right. And this is on the left side. If you log into business.google.com, go to the bottom left side, you'll see it after you click on your location. You'll see services and you'll see products. Services is an awesome opportunity where you can break out every single thing you do into a lot of micro categories. Okay. So for example, family law is not just family law, and I mentioned this earlier. It's also divorce. It's also child custody. It's child support. It's father's rights. It's grandparents' rights. It's prenups, postnups. I mean, you can break it all out. Alimony, criminal justice. It's sex crimes. It's drug crimes. It's manslaughter. It's all those, and each of those have subcategories if you want to go that far into it. So for me, a lot of my clients, I end up breaking out their services into about 100 subcategories of services. Okay, and so I put those services, and then I actually write individualized text, about 300 characters of text, okay, that's customized to each of those, so that we're adding, in terms of just pure content, about, 30,000 characters of text to this profile. Which again, why do we do this? Well, it shows, Google scans all this. They know it. It's literally in the account, right? And so it helps them very clearly understand who you are and what you do. And especially when somebody does a search for, because inevitably they look for a specialist. So for example, in criminal law, they're not likely going to type in drug lawyer. They're likely going to type in the crime they specifically got charged with. They're going to type in marijuana crime lawyer, right? Or meth crime lawyer. And by having that in your services, Google is way more likely to rank you. And on top of that, when you do that search, that person, it actually shows on Google, it says provides marijuana crime defense lawyer, whatever you wrote in, right? It literally says it on the profile. And so that person's way more likely to click on yours because the other people just say drug crime. And the people are like, well, but I have marijuana crime, not drug crime, right? Like They want the specifics. Okay. So you can really go into the details there of services. And then products are a very similar thing in terms of the setup. They just have a visual component. You can put like a little image with it and they get categorized and they get shown. I'm not going to go too deep into it, but they get shown on Google My Business a little bit more visually than services do. All right. And so that's kind of the initial setup, right? Of just like, okay, what's all the grunt work we can just do one time into that profile, which is forever yours, right? Like once we do it, we'll never take it. We can't take it away. It's yours. You own the profile. You own everything, right? So we put all this grunt work into it. You own it all. Okay. And so that's the second phase. Third phase from there, right? Now, if you're working with us, we're also doing things like setting up call tracking. So we know where every single call is coming from. We're doing ranking tracking. We're doing all that kind of stuff, right? So that would technically be our third phase if we were working together. But third phase, from answering your question of like, okay, what does consistency look like? Well, this is what I'm talking about. There's a lot you can do on the ongoing. So for us, the battle never really ends, right? Because people are always competing. Everyone in your market is trying to win. Like set and forget is not going to get you there, okay? So to compete with these guys, we're uploading photos every single week, right? We're uploading posts every single week. We're adding Q&As every single week, right? We're asking to get reviews every single week. We're responding to those reviews every single week. We're also creating an additional piece of content every single week. So every single month. And we only do one per month, not per week. We have packages for once per week, but that's more than you really need. Once per month is sufficient. But anyway, so in that example I said before, if you say you're a divorce lawyer, but you don't have a divorce page, I'm going to go create you a divorce page. Okay. Now I make my strategy dependent on the content you have or don't have, right? So that I can prove to Google that you're an expert in what you do. And so at the end of the day, like doing well on Google My Business, it's not black magic. It's not a special trick. It really is just a bunch of grunt work, right? And so that kind of covers what goes into the setup on your website, what goes into the setup on Google Business, and then what kind of goes into the ongoing consistency side of things with maintaining that over time. And what I found is that if you can put that consistency of effort, get those reviews consistently, put in those posts, the photos, the Q&As, prove to Google you're an expert, Google will consistently, within a 3-month period, I see people double or triple their profile views, which usually leads to about a 10 to 30%, up to 50% call volume increase in a very short time period, which is how I actually end up being able to guarantee my results. You know, it's not just based on some woo-woo stuff. It's just, I've just done the campaigns. I've done the data. I'm like, look, man, if I put more grunt work in your market than anybody else, nobody else in your market's putting this grunt work into this profile. Okay. If I put this grunt work, your market share is going to increase sufficiently such that you're going to get at least about 20 case opportunities minimum. So if you've got a conversion rate of at least 25% to 30%, right? You're looking at, at least 5 to 6, 7 cases, which at an average case value of at least $2,000, which is a pretty low number, all things said. Most people are doing 3, 4, 5. You're making money on the campaign, no matter what you're paying me.
Right. Yeah. And I love that. And I love all this detail you just provided, because it really opens up your mind to realizing that there's a lot more to this than meets the eye. Even like I had no idea that what's on your website drives your Google My Business. And it's almost like I'm sitting here thinking like, that somebody else who focuses on SEO, they're focusing on your website content and it stops there. You're almost focusing on SEO through a different lens, through the Google My Business lens. So you might accidentally end up ranking in Google search through the work that you're doing.
It happens all the time.
Reality is that's not the goal. The goal is to get you to rank in Google My Business first, and then you can focus, if you want, to fine tune the website and try to get you to rank in search as well.
So here's exactly why I don't do that with websites though. And this just, again, comes down to the data. The best I've ever seen a website convert is about 3% of the traffic you get will call you. Okay. So if you put in all this work, and it could be a lot of work, right, to like really rank for that unique keyword, right? You find out that particular long tail search in your market that Justia doesn't own or lawyers.com doesn't own. The guy's spending millions a year. Somehow you find a keyword that they're not ranking for. And you're like, okay, one good example of this that actually worked was like gender marker correction. All right. So gender marker correction is a newer thing. Justia doesn't own it, whatever. I had a client, they do all this work to get that gender marker correction. Okay. And they get 300 extra people a month on their website, which doubles their traffic. It's a huge win for SEO. Okay. But only 3% of those people call, right? That's 9 calls. All that work, all that money. How many thousands were probably spent on that campaign for 9 calls? The numbers just don't work. Right. So when I see that same kind of increase though on Google My Business, if I see 300 profile views increase on Google My Business, I tend to see still, even at that lift, a 5-10% increase in call volume, which that could be, even with just a small number there, that could be an extra 15 calls. That could be an extra 20 calls. Like it doesn't take much. Right. And so the numbers work out when you emphasize using SEO as a tool to support Google My Business. Right. I find the numbers work out because, again, 60 to 80% of calls come from Google My Business. 75% of those people call without ever looking at your website. And websites, even if you do get that traffic, only 3% of them convert and actually call. The numbers just work out on Google My Business. And I just don't see it working for traditional SEO anymore.
All right. Now I have some questions about location. So there's a few questions here, and I'll ask them all together because your answer might cover different parts of it. I recently heard a talk by Seth Price from Blue Shark Digital, talking about the change in the algorithm for how Google My Business finds law firms based on where you're located. So it used to be that if you were in a metropolitan area, it searched the whole metropolitan area and it selected from there. So you could be the top law firm in Dallas, and it would, if you did a search for a law firm in Dallas, that top law firm would show up first in the map pack, where now the algorithm looks locally. It finds you like the one that's in this specific neighborhood of Dallas, and it ranks those higher than maybe what's perhaps the best law firm in town that's on the other side of town. So what I want, I'm giving this as a preemptive. The other thing is there are law firm owners on this listening to this podcast who have decided to run a virtual practice. They don't have an office. They don't maintain a physical address. So my question to you is at what is the value of Google My Business to somebody based on where they're located or not located at all? How to overcome that? What emphasis needs to be placed on that location? Should somebody be focusing on renting an office just to be able to have an address and things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question, and I love covering it. So first, I want to address the whole local ranking things. It's new and it's not new. It's kind of been well known that functionally you've got a 25-mile ranking radius maximum, really, with Google Business. That's been true for years. I think they're getting better at basically differentiating the competition based on neighborhoods and kind of getting more into street by street. So street by street ranking is starting to be a thing now. So I think it's getting more detailed, but I wouldn't say it's all new. I don't know if you know this, but the Dallas Metroplex is the size of the state of Connecticut. Okay. So actually, if you put a map of Connecticut over Dallas Metroplex, it's literally the same size. Okay. So the idea that a Google My Business in center Dallas would rank in outer Dallas, that doesn't really make sense to me. I don't think that hasn't happened in a very long time.
I use Dallas as an example. That was my own,
example. Did Seth say that? Because I was like, what the hell, Seth? I know you know better than that.
He was using DC as the example. That's where he's located.
All right. So that's a bit smaller, so that helps a little bit. Yeah, you could fit DC in a 25-mile radius. That makes a little bit more sense. But anyways, Google Business has always been radius based, right? You're going to rank better in 5 miles than you do in 10 miles, and then you do in 15, than you do in 25. As you can move up in that always. Eventually, you can dominate all 25. But you're not really going to rank much further than that. The only time I see people ranking maybe like 50 miles or more is if you're in the middle of nowhere, podunk, like Wyoming, right? Where there's just no one else for them to show. Okay. So like that, other than that, it's really always been radius based. And now, again, it may be more detailed now. And I agree with him probably that we're getting onto street by street. It's getting more intricate, but it's always been radius based. So moving on from that, and despite that, by the way, the call volume from it is insane. So yeah, location matters here.
And I want to add, Ronnie, I'm going to add one more thing to my question. So I definitely know for a fact that there's I have clients and there are listeners who their practice is either nationwide or statewide, right? Yep. So if somebody's doing something that's federal law, like let's say they're doing patents and trademarks, their clients are across the US. Somebody who's doing estate planning, their clients could be throughout the entire state. Yep. So where's the value in Google My Business for people who are trying to reach a broader audience? And if somebody on the opposite side of the state is doing a search for estate planning attorneys in the state of Arizona, are they really going to ever show up when they're focusing on Google My Business?
Yeah. So I'll address that after I address your virtual question. So is it worth it for somebody with a virtual office to do exactly what you said, which is rent an office? And the answer for me is a unilateral. Absolutely. It's not even a question. And to cover this, just so everyone knows, there is absolutely, without a doubt, no workaround. Okay. You must have some sort of physical location. If you do some kind of virtual location where you try to say, hey, this is a person with a PO box or a person with a mailbox, or just, there's services now saying that they can do it. Eventually you're going to get caught. Eventually your listing's going to be suspended. They don't even let Regus nowadays, like co-working spots. Like they're not happy with that. Okay. I'll talk about some ways to work with that, but there is no just pure workaround. Hey, I can have a totally non-existent address and have this. And there's actually good reason for that. And I want to tell people that restriction actually protects you. Because a couple of years ago, here's what happened when that restriction didn't exist. All the big guys with lots of money, the first thing they did is they spent all the money they had to open thousands upon thousands of listings in every city and every market, and then just completely dominated everyone locally. Because what are you going to do if somebody like Morgan & Morgan comes in and they now have a location in every individual podunk city in the United States? Because they can do that, right? They just dominate. They got every lead they could, and the local guys had no ranking anymore. They had no relevancy because all the big guys were in every city. And so Google cracked down on that, okay? And so that crackdown actually protects local businesses, smaller businesses, firms like the ones we're talking to, actually being able to make money off this listing and not just having it being completely dominated by the local big guys, right? Or the nationwide big guys, I should say. So anyways, but getting onto how do you actually, work with that? As you said, probably the best way is, as long as you have some sort of lease agreement, even one that says, hey, you're allowed to lease this office one day out of the month, right? You pay $100 a month. Say you work with a non-competing dentist office, right? Or a non-competing type of law even. And you say, hey, I want to sign a lease with you, $100 a month. Can I use your office once per month? And on a signed agreement, say I can do it. And as long as you have a signed agreement at that address that says you can use this office as an actual lease agreement, you're fine. You're good. Right? You can't do that with it's different when it's a service. Google doesn't like it when it's a service, like somebody's selling their service to give you that address. That doesn't work. But a legitimate lease agreement with some other local business, and you're going to be fine. You're going to be verified. As long as you can get mail there, get the postcard, you're fine. Right? And is it worth it? Heck yeah, it's worth it. If you're paying $100 a month, but you're probably going to get at least 3, 4, 5. A lot of my clients get 6, 7 cases a month from this one listing. Do you pay back $100 a month? Yeah, you pay it back. It's worth it. Whether you're virtual or not. I have people right now who they serve Arizona, Phoenix, but they live in New York, right? They've been doing that for decades, right? And they're making tons of money this way, right? They're doing great. So the point is it worth for somebody in virtual to figure it out? Absolutely. The money is there, but pick your location wisely, right? Because you have the freedom to, so make sure you're in a market that actually has enough demand, right? Don't be in a market that is not big enough, right? So don't go into the middle of nowhere, Ohio, for example, even though you could, right? Like pick your city strategically. It's because you still got to put effort into it. You still got to get reviews. You still got to put effort into it, right? So put your effort into a market that's worth going into. So that covers that. That kind of brings us into the other question you asked, though, of okay, what do you do in the nationwide situation? When it relates to working with Google My Business. Now, of course, you always have other opportunities with Google Ads. You can target anywhere in the nation with Google Ads. That one of the benefits of Google Ads is that. The downside of Google Ads is that you only get what you put in, right? There's a certain threshold where you're going to get a case for maybe $500 or maybe $1,000, depending on your market, right? Like personal injury tends to be higher. Okay. So, but you're going to get exactly that. Every $1,000 you put in, every $500 in, you get one case, right? It's never going to be better than that. It never gets any cheaper. It just is what it is. Okay. Google My Business has the benefit of that for a much lower price. It could be down to $100 a case or $200 a case. It can be way cheaper, a lot more opportunity in it, but it has the downside of it does absolutely have a geographic limit. So the way I handle it with nationwide people is you can really only put so much marketing effort into it anyways, because you still got to get reviews in it, put the effort in, etc. Pick your markets wisely. So if you're in a statewide situation, what I have is I have a lawyer right now who serves statewide. Okay, great. We'll put him in. All right, we'll put him in Louisville, right? He's in Kentucky. So make sure he's in Louisville. Let's make sure he's in Cincinnati, not Cincinnati. There's another one city right next to Cincinnati I'm breaking out on though. But you say, we'll pick the 3 major cities, right, in his state in this example, and say, great, let's really get our presence in there. Because at the end of the day, 20% of the state is likely going to provide 80% of the client volume, right? You don't actually need to serve every podunk county in your state. In reality, there's going to be 3 major cities, right, that provide the majority of your actual client flow that you can handle. All right. Or even 2 of them, right? Because you have to have the ability to handle the client flow anyways. You can't, not everyone can handle 20 cases a month, right? And you have to get ready for that. So what I would do in that situation, say, I get it, you're nationwide, you're statewide. For now, pick 1, 2, 3 max that you can build a location in, doing exactly what I talked about before. Make a deal with a local business, get a postcard, have a lease agreement, have your listing there, put effort into those, generate clients using Google My Business in those locations. And if and when you can afford and have the sufficient ability to handle more volume, of course, you can always keep expanding from there, right? But do it one at a time is how I would address it.
Got it. So when you say, choose a city, choose a location, that's the strategy of go find a business where you can have $100 a month lease agreement with them. But then each of those locations has its own Google My Business profile. So you need reviews for each location.
Yeah,
which
the
is why
workload doubles each time. Yep.
Right. You want to make sure that you're not spreading the reviews you're going to get so thin that each one is not worth it.
Exactly. Because if you only get 3 reviews a month, well, then you have 3 listings and that's only 1 review per location, right?
Right.
Then that can get pretty brutal. Now, of course, eventually your call volume goes up, so your case volume goes up, and thus your opportunities go up, and you start getting to more reviews. So it kind of has a give and take there, right? But usually I say, hey, look, man, if you can get 5 reviews a month, well, then okay, you can handle 2 locations, because then you can get 2 to 3 per month, and that's fine, right? If you can't do more than at least 2 to 3 per location, hold off for now, build those listings up, get higher volume. Get to where you can handle maybe 9 reviews a month, then add a 3rd location, right? And you can keep going from there. Really, the only question is, can you handle both the grunt work, which I talked about? Because again, you got to redo all those posts, all those photos, all those Q&As, all those services, all those products, just the pure grunt work. And you have to split your reviews now between 3 different locations. So the workload increases. Now, fortunately, the case volume also increases, right? Because Google My Business can be absolutely so effective, right? That on average, minimum, I see people getting 5, 6 cases a month in almost any market with Google My Business, right? So each location, if that's adding 5, 6 cases a month at an average of 3 cases, it's $15,000 to $20,000 for each location. Like, you can make that work,
Right.
But it absolutely still requires quite a bit of effort.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we're gonna have to wrap it up. We're out of time, literally out of time. Like my next interview is in a minute, but so there's 3 questions I have for you. So normally when I wrap up an interview, I ask you to leave one lasting piece of advice for our audience. How can they connect with you? I'm going to add a 3rd question, and that is, like, what is the minimum? So in the who, not how, right? Somebody wants to hire NoBull Marketing to get their Google My Business profile up and running, or tweaked and streamlined. What is the minimum amount of spend that they can expect to hire a marketing agency to get this in place for them?
Yeah. So our base campaigns start at about $1,500 a month. Okay. And I'll be clear though, I only give that particular campaign to very certain people that I have good faith in that their sales skills are sufficient. And what I mean by that is, on that $1,500 a month campaign, right? If we're going to make that profitable in the time period we are, right? That's your bare minimum investment. You've got to be able to close deals. I've learned my lesson the hard way. When I work with lawyers that have a 3% close rate, I can't make them money, right? Like, I have a certain threshold. I'm like, look, if you can't close deals, I can't make you money. So, but for the majority of people, we tend to start them out on our $24.97 per month campaign, which also includes Google ads. Okay. And the reason we do that is then we can get way more case flow coming in, and the chances of you turning that into profit increase more as you just have more opportunities coming in. Right. So we tend to start people there about $24.97 plus minimum of about $1,000 in ad spend. So about $3,500 a month. But For people who come in, talk to me, we find out we're a good relationship, I am willing to offer the $1,500 per month campaign, which is just Google My Business, and we'll make it work for you so that within 3 months, we guarantee you'll be profitable. And if it's not, what we do is how the guarantee works. If we fail in 3 months to make you profit, by the way, that's off gross profit, so about 60 to 80% for most lawyers. If we fail at that, right, we'll work for free for up to 3 more months after that. If we fail after that, after 6 months total, we refund all your money, right? And so that's where that comes in.
Wow, that's pretty incredible. All right. And how does somebody take the next step with you?
Yeah, I mean, the easiest way is just send me an email at rdeaver@nobullmarketing.co. That's R as in Roger, D as in dog, EA, V as in Victor, ER at NoBull, BULL, marketing.co, not .com. I'm going to buy that .com soon. It's on my list.
All right, awesome. And one last piece of advice that you want to leave with our listeners.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest one for me is probably that reviews are way more important than you think, and don't play defense, play offense, and realize that at the end of the day, you don't just have to get them from paying clients. You can get them from anyone you've given value to, friends and family you've given free legal advice to, seminars you've hosted, law students you've taught, free consultations where you spent too much time with the person and gave them too much advice, you name it. The opportunities are boundless. And if you were just to implement that one thing, just get more reviews, you would see more cases coming in as little as 2 to 3 weeks from now.
Awesome. Love it. Folks, we're going to link up Ronnie's email address in the show notes. Definitely shoot him an email if anything that he said tells you, hey, we really need NoBull Marketing in our lives. Really great information on understanding Google My Business, understanding the power of it and why it should be the focus of your marketing, especially early on in your business practice. There are some questions I had that we didn't get to. There's only so much time on this interview, so maybe we'll have Ronnie back to discuss those. But Ronnie, I appreciate your time and your expertise and sharing that with our listeners. Folks, if this is your first time listening to the podcast, we want to make sure that you get notified every time we release a new episode. So make sure to hit that subscribe button in your podcast player. And if you really love the show, there's 300 plus episodes for you to go back and binge on, and spend the rest of a time to eternity to catch up on everything that you've missed. But we're bringing you new stuff every single week, and we're trying to bring you the best of the best. And this was just an absolutely stellar conversation. If you want to learn more about getting coaching from us, joining our Elite Lawyers coaching program, go to profitwithlaw.com/free coaching, sign up for a free coaching session with one of our coaches. And whether or not you decide to join us as a paid participant, that free coaching session is not a masked sales call. It is an actual coaching conversation. You will walk away renewed, inspired, reinvigorated. You'll know what you need to do to get beyond yourself and to start making things happen in your law firm. And that's why you're going to want to take the next step with us as well. Because if that's what you could do in one call, imagine what you could do in a year with me. So go to profitwithlaw.com/free coaching. Check it out. Folks, we'll catch you next week. Take care. Have you been enjoying the show? We sure hope so. To make sure you never miss an episode, be sure to hit the subscribe button in your podcast player app. Next week, we will be back with more valuable resources and ideas on how to break the mold and take your law firm to the next level.